The day I received my diagnosis of stomach cancer at the hospital was the same day our 4-year marriage contract reached its end. Tong Jiao couldn't wait a second longer. She tossed the divorce papers directly into my face before turning to find her true love. Seeing how calmly I signed the papers, her gaze wavered for a rare moment. "You re not going to make a scene anymore?" I lowered my eyes. No more scenes." I vanished into the white silence of a snowy night. Later, she would search the entire world for me, but she would never get to see me one last time. When I stepped out of the hospital, the snow had begun to fall lightly. Tiny flakes danced between heaven and earth, like free-spirited elves. I exhaled a cloud of white mist, intending to text Tong Jiao, but after a moment's thought, I decided to take a taxi home instead. She was likely busy preparing for the divorce. Today was the day our marriage contract expired. For the sake of her company and the approval of grandfather Tong, she had patiently endured me for 4 years. As expected, when I arrived at the Tong residence, that woman's ice-cold face was already waiting. She always waited for me like that. The snow on my coat hadn't even melted before she hurriedly pushed the signed divorce agreement toward me. Out of habit, I took it and examined the details. "Is the money enough? If not, I can give you more." Her mocking tone was like snow settling over my heart. "I'll give you whatever you want. Just make sure you never show your face before me or King Feng again." Seeing me bow my head in silence, she assumed I was plotting something. "Grandfather is gone. No one will fall for your tricks anymore." To her surprise, I merely stared blankly for a moment before calmly signing my name. "Fine." She probably didn't expect me to be so decisive. Her gaze flickered. "You re not going to make a scene?" In the past, I would have fought to the death before agreeing to a divorce, but now I no longer care. I squeezed the cancer diagnosis in my pocket and replied softly, no more scenes. My cancer is already in the advanced stages. I won't be making any more scenes." My preternatural calm piqued her curiosity. "This is the first time you've been so reasonable. I am almost not used to it. Is it because grandfather is gone that your conscience finally caught up to you?" I prepared to go upstairs to pack, answering without looking back, "I'll say this one last time, grandfather's death had nothing to do with me." She let out a cold laugh, her eyes filled with an unmelting frost. "I didn't have much to take, just a few clothes and some odds and ends." I took nothing of hers, leaving just as empty-handed as the day I arrived. As I came downstairs, I saw her standing at the door, welcoming King Feng. They stood in the snow, their winding footprints a testament to how fast that man had run into her arms. He was beaming, his eyelashes frosted with ice, his flushed face cradled in her palms like a priceless treasure. "Why did you run all the way here?" Tong Jiao's voice was filled with fond reproach. "Because I wanted to see you," King Feng giggled, nestling into her coat. Their clear laughter rang in my ears. Tong Jiao gently brushed the snow from his hair. "Next time, I'll pick you up. You will catch a cold like this." I acted as though I heard nothing and walked past the lovers. Snow piled on my shoulders, quickly coating me in white, but I didn't feel the cold. "Hey, Yi Chen," King Feng called out, tossing a filthy little doll at my feet. Shi Jiao gave this to you, but I think it's hideous, so I am giving it back. I looked deeply at King Feng before kneeling to pick it up. He feigned terror, hiding behind Tong Jiao. "Yi Chen looks so scary." I parted my lips, but in the end, I said nothing. The woman stood opposite me through the wind and snow. I couldn't see her face clearly. She said, "Goodbye, Yi Chen. I hope we never meet again." The snow grew heavier. Standing in the winter night, I felt a sense of aimlessness. I reached out to catch the snowflakes, the tiny shards of ice melted in my palm. My hand was as cold as tears dried by the wind. I pulled out the diagnosis, read it one last time, then tore it to shreds and threw it into the snow. I had Tried my best to love her. I really had. My 2 encounters with her were both matters of fate. Once, when I was a child, I risked my life to save her from drowning. She left behind a small jade pendant telling me to find her in Jiangmen when I grew up. I believed her. Another time, after my pendant was stolen, she saved me from a gang of thugs. She stared at my terrified face and asked if I wanted to make a deal. And so, to please grandfather Tong, I became her husband in name only. We married quickly. Tong Zhijiao smoothly took over the company, becoming the chairperson of the Tong Group. She said, I am hiring you for 4 years. We divorce after. I lowered my head to hide the disappointment and confusion in my eyes. Why didn't she recognize me? Why was she so cold to me? I had recognized her as that little girl the moment I saw her. It was just a pity that without the pendant she didn't know who I was even. Though I had long since lost my heart to her. I was naive then, thinking I didn't need the pendant to make her remember our story. Tong Zhijiao was always hot and cold. I could never tell if she loved me, but whenever we were before grandfather Tong, her warmth like a spring breeze always softened my heart. If that was acting, it was far too convincing. I marveled at her. Tong Zhijiao was a terrifying woman. The moment we stepped out of grandfather's study, her tenderness vanished, replaced by an indifference that left me hollow. Because of that, I loved visiting grandfather. I'd deluded myself into thinking it would make her love me more. If love accumulated bit by bit, surely she would eventually give her heart to me. Grandfather cherished me too. Hey, told Tong Zhijiao to stop looking for that boy. Maybe Chen is the one you were looking for. The woman would always shake her head stubbornly. He doesn't have the pendant. It's Naim. Bitterness welled up inside me. I offered a wry smile and nodded. I really don't have it because my pendant was stolen by thugs. Until the day it appeared around King Feng's neck. Seeing the way she looked at it, I knew Tong Zhijiao's heart had followed that piece of jade. After a long wait, a taxi arrived, the distant headlights pulling me back from my thoughts. I climbed in, lost in a daze, and told the driver to take me to the airport. Outside was a world of light. Except for the engine, everything was silent. I closed my eyes, and as my spirit relaxed, I began to drift. I woke. The kind driver informed me we had arrived. I looked at the board and chose the earliest flight out. I hated the city, but aside from the orphanage, I had nowhere to go. I didn't want to return to that desolate little town. I hated Tong Zhijiao, to her hypocrisy, her coldness, her deliberate betrayal, and the way she mistook a common fish eye for a priceless pearl. My stomach cramped. Remembering something, I bought a hot fast food meal and sat eating tiny bites in the airport at 4:00 am. My appetite was gone after a few mouthfuls. I wanted to vomit so badly that tears streamed down my face. I was someone who hated waste, yet I loathed how weak I had become. A suffocating feeling lingered in my chest. She called me an actor, a pretender, all because I refused to eat a meal King Feng had cooked. His malicious smirk flashed in my mind, quickly replaced by his pitiful tear-filled eyes. The jade pendant glittered at his waist. It was the proof Tong Zhijiao and I were meant to share, yet it had become his trophy. Zhijiao, Chen doesn't seem to like my cooking. He had asked timidly, is it not to your taste? That meal was clearly packed with chopped green peppers, mixed so thoroughly they could never be separated. He knew perfectly well I was allergic to green peppers. King Feng went to the trouble of cooking for you, and you were still being picky. You look down on him that much. Yes, not that I am allergic to. My words were cut off. I think you were just being dramatic despite him. Her face was so dark it looked like it could drip ink. It seems I've spoiled you too much. To prove myself, I wept as I ate every bite of that pepper-filled rice. Afterward, my body broke out in hives, and I struggled to breathe. Only then did a flicker of panic and guilt appear in her eyes. King Feng claimed he didn't know. In the end, I lay in the hospital and no one apologized. The boarding announcement rang out and I left the city behind. After I disappeared, Tang Shijiao began planning her wedding to King Feng. After 20 years, she finally had the company she wanted and was marrying the man she thought she loved. Yet an inexplicable sense of dread haunted her, a sort of sixth sense. She visited grandfather's grave, repeatedly seeking answers, but was met only with the rustle of falling snow. Grandfather, I finally found the boy with the pendant, so why can't I let go of that man? The day he left, his eyes were void of emotion, so calm it was terrifying. That doll she hadn't expected King Feng to take it. Watching him kneel to pick it up, Tang Shijiao felt a sharp pain in her chest. It wasn't like the Chen she knew. Had he accepted his fate? Or had he simply given up? With him gone, the house became far too quiet. She found herself remembering their visits to grandfather. The warm, golden sunset would light up the room, illuminating dust motes dancing in air. His defenseless smile would catch her eye, pure, warm, and untarnished, like winter sunshine. If only it could stay like this forever. She startled herself with the thought. She looked down at the sleeping King Feng. The jade pendant on the nightstand glowed with a warm light. Could she really be wrong? Yi Chen had no proof. Why should she believe in him? Looking out at the snow, she thought of how he had left on a night just like this. What was he doing? Was he cold? I carried my meager luggage onto the plane. It wasn't until I looked out the window that I realized I hadn't said goodbye to grandfather. That white-haired old man with his sharp eyes and kind smile. An old person in that house who was good to me. He would hold my hand and tell me not to mind the owner of the pendant. The jade didn't matter. To him, Yi Chen was the true savior. His eyes were discerning. He saw the truth of things. He saw my love for Tang Shijiao clearly. Even when King Feng appeared with the pendant, he only acknowledged me as his grandson-in-law. He scolded her for being as stubborn as her blind mother, looking at the pendant instead of the person. She refused to listen, and it was the first time they ever truly fought. Soon after, his health declined. He knew his time was short. I worried about us, but with the company in her hands, his advice fell on deaf ears. One evening, driven by a powerful intuition and stung by her cruelty, I went to the hospital in the pouring rain. Grandfather was too weak to stand, propped up on pillows, but his dull eyes brightened my arrival. For the first time, his lifelong pride bowed to the passing years. I collapsed by his bed and sobbed. He reached out a cold, rough hand to stroke my hair. And we're just children. She doesn't believe me, I choked out through bitter tears. Tang Shijiao doesn't believe a word I say. My cheeks burned. But I was the one who saved her. He told me to look up. Yi Chen, remember, it doesn't matter who owns the pendant. What matters is if she truly loves you. If she loved you enough, she would believe. And grandfather knew. He saw that her love for me was an empty shell. I composed myself, said my farewells, and ran. The next morning, he passed. I was the last person to see him. Prompted by King Feng, she accused me of upsetting him and causing his death. With tear-filled eyes, I questioned her. We've been married 4 years, and you won't believe a single word I say. Isn't that pathetic? Her gaze hardened. Don't forget your place, she said. King Feng snuggled against her. I hadn't warned her. She might have been fooled by you. He had anticipated I would tell her the truth and struck first, blackening my name. Without the pendant, no matter how much detail I gave, she wouldn't believe me. Yi Chen is clever, trying to use the old man as a shield, but he was too fragile for your lies. Why else would you visit him in a storm? The Night before he died, I bowed my head in agony, but she saw only guilt. In her rage, she locked me away, forbidding me from attending the funeral. I never got to say goodbye. Sir, do you need help? The flight attendant's voice pulled me from the past. I took the tissue she offered and wiped my tears. Grandfather was right, our fate was too thin. Outside, a sliver of light appeared. After he died, the divorce grew closer. She became worse, staying out all night with King Feng. I went from frantic to broken and finally to numb. I wanted my heart to rest. Through King Feng's provocations, her hatred for me grew. To her, I was a clown trying to steal his place, a husband in name only who dared to dream of her heart. But didn't she truly not love me at all? Not entirely. For 4 years, she provided for me well. She met my simple requests. She accepted my ifs without joy or disgust. Once, after a misunderstanding caused by King Feng, we had a massive fight. I screamed that she was blinded by a piece of jade and couldn't see the truth. She was so angry she raised her hand to strike me. I was devastated. She would be this cruel for another man. Despite the contract, I was legally her partner. I had given her 4 years of devotion, yet she would hit me over his lies. I screamed until my voice broke. Go ahead, kill me. Grandfather is watching, you will never forgive you. My sudden ferocity stunned her. To her, I was always the gentle one. I didn't do it. Why won't you believe me? I pointed at them. She let the cat out and blamed me. Are there no cameras? You'd rather trust his foul mouth than check the footage. Grandfather's death, the pendant, you never respected me. You only believe what you want to believe. Seeing my heart break, she tried to offer a clumsy comfort. Fine, stop crying. I pushed her hand away. Don't touch me. At night, unable to sleep, I sat on a swing alone. I hated my weakness. I was just an orphan. He had status and schemes. A shadow appeared. I am sorry. It was Tong Jijiao, the doll in her pocket. The wind was cold. I pulled my coat tight. What do you want? To apologize. I shouldn't have tried to hit you. In the dark, her eyes sparkled like gems. Give me the doll. I held out my hand. No, you gave it to me. If you don't love me, give it back. She stared at me. Our contract says neither side has to return feelings. I smiled bitterly. True. But I didn't want to believe I was the only one who broke that rule. She looked at me with an unreadable expression. I left before she could respond. My stomach hurt so much. The plane landed on the other side of the ocean. I didn't know where I was, only that my head was spinning. Seeing the doll in my hand, I knew the dream was over. We were divorced. Though my life was counting down, I wanted to see one last beautiful sunset. I wasn't afraid to die. My heart had died long ago. My only regret was not seeing grandfather one last time. Don't worry, I'll join you soon. I found a place to sleep, took my medicine, and went to the sea. I craved the ocean. In 20 years, I'd only gone once with her. The winter beach was empty. I touched the freezing water. The wind cleared my head. I finally appreciated life's beauty. Had I been a prisoner to that pendant? Now, whoever she loved didn't concern me. My love for her was fading. That was a good thing. I stayed there until the pain became unbearable, even for morphine. I was hospitalized. Within a month, the end was near. I received an electronic invite to their wedding. The cancer had metastasized. The doctor asked about chemo. I smiled and refused. I blocked her number. In Jiangnan, she tried to call me and failed. A sudden pain hit her chest. At the wedding, she expected me to cause a scene. I never showed. Her anxiety grew. She investigated my finances and found I was in a hospital in country B. A servant found my torn notes. By the road. Everything pointed to the inn. She flew there, screaming at my doctors. How? Is this another trick? How much? Did he pay you? I'll double it. The doctor looked at her strangely. No one jokes about their own death, madam. She collapsed. Grandfather's words haunted her. Use your heart. She remembered me asking, is what? You see always the truth? She took a private jet to country B, her hand shaking. She didn't love me, yet she couldn't bear the thought of me dying. Her heart felt like it was suspended over boiling oil. She even left King Fong. She sensed he was the problem, but finding me was more important. At the hospital, they said the patient in bed 9 had checked out. He was resilient. He refused chemo and left 2 days ago. We don't know where he went. She looked at the crowds, feeling helpless. I had donated all my divorce money to a local orphanage. She realized how cruel she had been, denying me a final goodbye to grandfather. It was too late. The day before I left, I called King Fong. Congratulations on my wedding. He gloated. You lost, Yi Chen. The pendant, Shijiao Yu. Lost everything. I looked at my Roman forward drip. I lost, but you won't win. For long. You can't even swim, can you? Stress-induced trauma is a pathetic excuse. He went. Kale. So what? You couldn't beat me, I whisper. What you steal will be lost the same way. Malice. Refracts. Good night, Mr. Kin. I hung up, feeling lighter. I wanted revenge, but I didn't have the body for it. I wanted to die. In the sun, in the spring. But I wouldn't make it to spring. The cancer was devouring me. I wanted to live. I had fought so hard to leave the orphanage. But fate has a price. I shouldn't have believed her promises. A woman's promise is the most fleeting thing. I went back to the sea. I hoped she would never find me. Tong Jijiao returned home, her face a storm. She screamed at King Fong as he played with a cat. The cat fled and his face turned whiter than a corpse. Is there nothing you want to tell me? She approached him like a predator. Can you even swim? His heart pounded. Was the pendant found or stolen? He collapsed, stammering. Did Yi Chen tell you something? She grabbed him. Don't answer with a question. My patience is gone. He saw the killing intent in her eyes. Jijiao, you always believed I saved you. I almost drowned. She wasn't moved. What were you wearing that day? Where did I give you the jade? He gave the answers I had told him years ago. She frowned. I wasn't wearing black that day. Oh, white then. It has been so long. Her face turned to ice. She had intentionally misled him. The truth was clear. I was the boy. I'll deal with you when I return. She boarded a plane back to country B, feeling like a monster. For a piece of jade, she had destroyed the man who truly loved her. She missed grandfather. She missed me. She wanted to tell me the doll was cute and she was sorry. I leaned against a window by a warm fire. My life was a flickering star, ready to go out. We did have good times. We went to the sea. Before King Fong, we were a real couple. I remember the first time. Tong Shijiao pat drunk by the shore. She spoke so much nonsense to me that night, her breath heavy with the scent of alcohol as she whispered into my ear, mingling with the fragrance of the shower gel she had used. My face flushed deep red, all the way to my ears. Yeah, I tried to remain composed, telling her to sober up. She seemed delighted, rambling on for a long time before finally resting her head on my lap and falling fast asleep. The woman who was usually so majestic and cold now looked like a large cat that had abandoned all its defenses, sleeping peacefully in my arms. It was the first time I realized how soft and shimmering Tong Jijiao's hair was. I looked up at the starlit sky over the ocean. The stars were brilliant and dazzling. The gentle, salty sea breeze surrounded me, yet it couldn't blow away the scent of wine clinging to her. Her warm breath made my legs tingle. I reached out to touch her face, my fingertips grazing her long eyelashes. She stirred restlessly, startling me into quickly pulling my hand back. That was the first time I had ever touched her face. If only we could have stayed like that forever. Unfortunately, everything ended the moment Tong Qijiao woke up. We both understood the unspoken boundary and tacitly agreed never to mention it again. Deep then, I am here to play with you. The boy's cheerful voice pulled me from my thoughts. I had rented a small wooden cabin from a local family for no other reason than its proximity to the sea. The boy's father was my landlord. After learning about my situation, the family cut my rent in half. The kindness of strangers always had a way of warming my frozen heart. The boy's name was An. He was only 12 and loved coming over to play and listen to my stories. In my free time, I taught him vocabulary. He was a quick learner. Whenever I praised him, his bright eyes would crinkle into a smile. Back at the orphanage, I rarely saw smiles like that. Looking at him now, my eyes always softened with a touch of tenderness. Tong Qijiao used to look at me like that sometimes, even though she maintained a cold mask most of the time. She had almost believed what her grandfather said. It was just a pity that from the moment we were born, we were destined to be apart. Even if we found our way to each other, we were bound to separate. Her obsession was too heavy, and that jade pendant was the knot in her heart she couldn't untie. By fixating so stubbornly on a specific outcome, she overlooked the person who loved her most right beside her. My body grew thinner by the day. I used to be able to go to the market myself, but now I had to rely on the family to bring me meals. My fingernails and lips turned ghostly white, and my complexion became so pale and translucent that I couldn't bear to look in the mirror. I could no longer keep food down. Everything I ate was immediately vomited back up. I could only manage sips of water, and during the worst spells, I forced myself to drink a little glucose. In this way, I clung to the half-life I had left, dragging myself through the days. One morning, feeling a slight surge of energy, I spread out a sheet of paper to write a letter to Tong Qijiao. I struggled to hold the pen, my handwriting shaky and crooked. Several times I nearly collapsed from exhaustion, but I forced myself to finish. Outside, the snow fell heavier and heavier. Looking at the white expanse, I suddenly felt a desperate urge to go out and see the ocean one last time. I fell into a long dream. I dreamed I was running away from the orphanage one afternoon. Just as I was about to climb a tree, I saw a bag twitching by the riverbank. Looking closer, it seemed like a person was inside. Without a second thought, I dove into the water, grabbing the bag to pull it ashore. Driven by a frantic instinct for survival, the person inside struggled against me. We wrestled in the water for a long time, until I was nearly spent. I thought I was going to die at the hands of whatever was in that bag. With great difficulty, I finally dragged it onto the bank. I untied the rope, revealing the pale face of a young girl. I didn't think twice. I immediately performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and CPR. Back then, I was innocent. I only cared about saving a life. The girl soon regained consciousness. She looked at me, dark-skinned, with messy short hair matted to my forehead, and saw me grinning. "You're awake," I said. She seemed a bit flustered. She sat up hurriedly, and asked where we were. I told her it was a remote town. She frowned, then and reached into her clothes and pulled out a small jade pendant. It was delicate and exquisite, glowing a vibrant green under the sun. One look told me it was incredibly valuable. "I have to go now. This pendant is for you. Come find me in Jiangnan later, and I will repay you." She struggled to stand. I accompanied her to change into clean clothes and found a bus to send her on her way. My heart was pounding, and it wasn't until she was gone that I realized I hadn't even asked for her name. And she didn't know who I was. That 12-year-old boy carried that secret in his heart from that day on. Later, I finally saved enough money to go to Jiangnan to find her. Life in the big city was brutal. My days were spent in abject poverty. I often went hungry all day, sleeping in dark basements to save on rent. At my lowest point, the only thing of value I owned was that jade pendant. But I still believed in her. One day, while passing through an alley, I was targeted by a group of thugs. They searched me and found the pendant. I panicked and burst into tears, screaming for them to give it back. The leader took it and fled. I had lost the only thing that could prove my identity. In the next second, Tong Qijiao descended into my world like a savior. I watched her from a distance. She had changed so much. Her features were sharper, her posture straight and commanding. With just a few moves, she handled the thugs. Just as I thought our worlds would never intersect, she made me an offer. The wheels of fate finally began to turn. I desperately wanted to tell her that my pendant had been stolen, but seeing her cold expression devoid of any joy of reunion, I hesitated. At the time, I thought we had plenty of time. I didn't realize that by missing that single chance, she would never believe me again. I can say if it was regret or loneliness I felt. Every time I looked into her eyes, I couldn't tell what she was thinking. In those 4 years, did Tong Chijiao ever love me? I don't care if you have a pendant or not. You being you is enough. That was what she said when she was drowned. I remembered those words for a long time, wanting to ask her if they were ever true. But I am so tired now. My soul feels heavy, as if it is being pulled away, and I can't even lift my head. So tired, so very tired. I want a dream from which I never have to wake. By the time Tong Qijiao found Deepthan, the snow outside the small wooden cabin had already melted. She had searched every orphanage but could find no trace of him. Her emotions swung from rage to disbelief. Even though she knew the truth about his cancer, she refused to accept it. With bloodshot eyes, she had hissed through gritted teeth, "If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want his body." But as time passed, her heart grew increasingly desperate. She knew full well that late-stage stomach cancer offered little time, yet she wouldn't give up. When she finally located Deepthan's residence, she found herself afraid to step forward. She asked the landlord if he had seen a thin, sickly man. The landlord was silent for a moment before speaking. "That tenant has passed away." Tong Chijiao staggered, nearly losing her footing. The tiny spark of hope that had just been lit was instantly extinguished by the grim news. Her pupils contracted. "Yes, dead. Yes, he was a very good man." The landlord patted An's head. "And was very fond of him, too. We heard he was waiting for someone." "Was it you, ma'am?" Tong Chijiao watched the man's mouth move, but her ears heard nothing. Her mind went blank. Her entire body felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. She couldn't believe Deepthan was gone. She opened her mouth mechanically. "Would you mind opening the door for me?" At that moment, An stared at her and suddenly spoke up. "Chijiao? Is your name Tong Chijiao? Deepthan told me about you." With a creak, the small wooden house was opened for the first time in months. An led the gaunt woman into the tiny room. Inside, there was nothing but a bed and a table. The fireplace had long since gone cold. Tong Chijiao's lips trembled as she walked through the room, lost for words. She sat on the edge of the bed and faintly caught the scent lingering on the pillow. Even his scent was fading, replaced by the smell of dry wood. Her legs felt like lead. She reached out to stroke the cold blanket, thinking of how Deepthan had been here, in a place like this, before he died. She could no longer hold it back. She burst into frantic, agonizing sobs. "I am sorry, Deepthan, I am sorry. I was such a fool, so blind, I am sorry." Her tears fell onto the pillow, leaving dark, wet stains. Her poor Deepthan had been left to wither away in a place like this. He was so afraid of pain. How much must he have suffered? "It's my fault for letting you endure such grievance. Is this your punishment for me? Making it so I could never see you one last time?" Her silhouette slumped further, her eyes so swollen and red she could barely see the person beside her. "Sister, please don't cry anymore," the boy said, carefully poking her. "This is the letter Deepthan asked me to give to you." She jolted awake from her grief, snatched the envelope, and tore it open. Seeing the crooked, labored handwriting on the paper, she fought back tears to read on. "Tong Chijiao, happy wedding. I hope you aren't happy. Happy New Year." Aside from the name Tong Chijiao, the words that followed were almost illegible. The date of the signature was New Year's Eve. Beside the letter lay that tattered doll. Tong Chijiao picked it up with trembling hands, clutching it tightly against her chest. Tears blurred the letter and her vision alike. She held the doll and the letter, her throat unable to produce any sound other than broken sobs. The sounds of her shattered weeping echoed through the small cabin. Her heart felt as if it were being torn apart piece by piece, a tragic and desolate grief like that of a lone wolf who had lost its mate. The boy watched her, confused. He didn't understand why Chijiao had taken so long to visit. "Sister, did you love brother Deepthan?" She turned her head slowly, her voice raspy and hollow. "I did." To her surprise, An shook his head. "No, you didn't. Why? Why didn't you believe him?" The boy tilted his head. "He told me you didn't believe he was a good person, but I think Deepthan was the best person." Tong Chijiao was overcome with panic and guilt. "No, there was just a misunderstanding between us. But why didn't I notice he was sick?" The boy looked down. "You really liked Deepthan?" Only now did Tong Chijiao finally wake up to the truth. Deepthan's death hadn't been without warning. He had always been thin, his face had always been pale. His appetite had grown worse and worse. He couldn't eat, and the boxes of painkillers on his bedside table were emptied one after another. But she hadn't paid any attention. She hadn't even asked why he had gone to the hospital that day. She was truly a wretch. It wasn't that Deepthan had never tried to tell her, she had simply dismissed him, scolding him for moaning without an illness. Up until the moment he died, she still thought he was conspiring with a doctor to play on her sympathy. She could never forgive herself. Those cruel, hurtful words had poured from her mouth, time and again tormenting his sincere heart. And only now did she realize it. To claim to love someone while never trusting them, scolding, ignoring, and being cold to them all because of a worthless piece of jade? Could that even be called love? Tong Qijiao bowed her head deeply, her expression filled with shame. For the first time, she had been taught a lesson by a child. She packed all of Deepthan's belongings to take back home. But as she was about to leave, her sharp eyes caught a faint inscription on the wooden headboard of the bed. "I don't want to die yet. I want to embrace the spring." The handwriting was incredibly faint, as if written with a pencil. Tong Qijiao could no longer contain herself. She collapsed to the floor, wailing in agony. She traced the small words, her body shaking with sobs. She didn't dare imagine what state of mind Deepthan had been in when he wrote those words. Despair, resignation, longing. But no matter what, she could never hold him again. The words left unsaid could only be carried to the grave, becoming a regret etched into her very bones. She had thought there were countless chances to make amends, never realizing that Deepthan would find eternal rest on that cold winter night. That final look on that snowy night was the last time they would ever see each other. The person she had spent over a decade searching for was the very Deepthan she had hurriedly chased away on the day of their divorce. How ironic. It turned out that her true love had been right beside her all along, and she had personally strangled the life out of him. "I was wrong, Deepthan. I was completely wrong." She was so heartbroken she could barely breathe. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I was blind, I didn't recognize you. I'm sorry." But no matter how much she apologized, Deepthan would never hear her again. Her command that they never meet again had truly become a final farewell. Upon returning home, Tong Qijiao carried an aura of death about her. She ordered the capture of Tan Fong and interrogated him personally, finally dragging every detail out of him. With every word he spoke, a part of her heart died. She stood up in a rage and violently choked him. Just as he was on the verge of death, she tossed him aside like trash. Tan Fong was so terrified he didn't dare make a sound, shrinking away from her gaze. But how could she let him off? She didn't want to hear another word of his begging. His tears only made her think of her late husband. Even though they were divorced, in her heart, Tan Fong wasn't worth a single hair on Deepthan's head. And yet, this man had brazenly stolen everything that belonged to Deepthan. Tong Qijiao's eyes were bloodshot. He deserved to die. She snatched the jade pendant from him and hurled it to the ground. It shattered into pieces, just like her broken heart. She stomped on the shards over and over before delivering a brutal kick to Tan Fong. He was in so much pain he nearly lost his voice. No one knew what happened in that room that night. All they knew was that the next day, a man covered in injuries was found dying by the roadside and taken to the hospital by a kind passerby. Due to severe torture and trauma, the doctor diagnosed Tan Fong with severe persecution mania. Tong Qijiao had him committed to the most secure mental asylum where he would spend the rest of his life. Even so, she felt no relief. A knot of resentment remained stuck in her throat. She was furious with herself. Every day, she went to her grandfather's grave to drink until she was dead drunk, eventually collapsing against the headstone in tears. Beside it was Deepthan's cenotaph. He had left nothing behind, so she could only place his few relics inside. "Grandfather, I miss you. I have nothing left. Even Deepthan is gone. I'm all alone." The usually cold and taciturn woman was now drenched in tears, weeping like a child. She had lost her parents early and was raised by her grandfather. She had always thought she could accept her parents' passing and that she could handle her grandfather's death. But she was wrong. Now that she had lost Deepthan, she had lost everyone who ever loved her. "I was wrong. I should have listened to you." In half-conscious, drunken stupor, she seemed to see her grandfather standing before her, huffing and glaring in anger. She wished so desperately that the moment was real. If only she could do it all over again. She knelt on the ground, oblivious to her mud-stained clothes, and began slapping herself across the face. She felt no pain with every slap. She uttered another apology. She finally realized she loved Deepthan. Like a coward, she finally dared to admit it to herself. It was just a pity that it was all too late. The doll she refused to return, the drunken confession by the sea, the endurance and the unspoken longing in his eyes. She had silently fallen for him long ago during those 4 years. Sometimes she wondered if only he had been her savior, things would have been better. The bright eyes of that boy from years ago still appeared in her dreams. Now that she knew the truth, the two faces merged perfectly. After more than a decade, he had grown so handsome, yet those sparkling eyes had never changed. She was such a fool. She had lived with him for 4 years and hadn't recognized him. Another spring arrived. The snow melted, young leaves sprouted, flowers bloomed, and the wind lost its icy bite. Everything was returning to life, yet Tang Qijiao's heart remained a frozen wasteland. The spring in her heart would never come. She spent her days and days, alternating between drinking and hiding in the study. She read Ethan's letter over and over, never tiring of it. She even commissioned a tattoo artist to ink the contents of the letter over her heart. She used to look down on such childish gestures. Now, looking at the finished tattoo, her eyes stung. Will this bring me a little closer to his heart? Remembering his love for the ocean, she took his doll to every famous beach, fulfilling his wish by traveling with him. She knew it was just a form of catharsis. She missed him every single minute. She had passed by his room countless times, but never had the courage to push the door open. She often mumbled to the doll, recounting old stories and memories, confessing her love to it like a madwoman. Deep then, I love you. Pendant or not, I love you. But the only response was the silence of the air. Tang Qijiao's will continued to erode. She moved like a ghost, her eyes devoid of soul. After pacing in front of his door time and again, she finally decided to turn the handle. With a click, the room that had been sealed for so long finally saw the light. After he left, she had forbidden the servants from entering, even Tan Fong was barred. Dust motes danced in the air. She pulled back the heavy curtains, and the room was instantly flooded with light. It was a beautiful, warm afternoon, much like the clean, clear smile of that boy years ago. Tang Qijiao felt no warmth, only a profound chill. He didn't take anything. The clothes in the closet, the daily necessities on the desk, the small items in the jewelry box, all were covered in a thin layer of dust. She looked around the room in a daze, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, she saw something reflecting light on the desk. Moving closer, she saw it was a sapphire cufflink. It was the birthday gift she had designed for him last year. He hadn't taken it. He had once offhandedly remarked that he had never seen blue snow, so she had stayed up all night designing a snowflake-shaped cufflink made of blue gemstones. It turned out that love had long ago woven itself into these small details, yet she had remained oblivious. Even now, she remembered his surprise and emotion upon receiving the gift. His eyes had sparkled with joy as he hugged her and whispered, Tang Qijiao, you were so good to me. Besides you and grandfather, no one has ever been this kind to me. But I think I like white snow better, because every snowflake that falls across the sky feels like it's writing your name. Tang Qijiao. Deep then. She choked out a laugh through her tears. Wasn't it writing your name, too? At the thought, she could no longer hold back the crushing sorrow. She collapsed to the floor and wailed. She hated herself for realizing too late. She hated herself for being afraid to face her own heart. If only she had known sooner, would the outcome have been different? Even without the guidance of the jade pendant, they had found their way to each other, so why hadn't she seen it? Happiness had been just one step away, yet it ended as nothing more than a grand dream. And now that she was awake, there was nothing left but tears to remind her that he had once walked through her life. This was likely the punishment for trampling on his sincere feelings. She accepted. She clutched the cufflink tightly, letting the sharp edges scar her palm, feeling as though life no longer held any meaning. I woke up in a haze, finding myself in a chaotic, formless space. I couldn't tell where I was. My consciousness was blurred, my mind a mess. The distant mist gradually cleared, and Tang Qijiao appeared in my line of sight. I watched like a spectator at a movie. It felt as though this was my story. I saw her place my doll neatly beside the bathtub. Blood dripped from her wrists, slowly staining the water red. I felt nothing. Her voice reached me as if from a great distance. Deep then, did you know? I wasn't actually drunk that night. I love you. She wore a gentle smile as she lowered her wrists into the water, then submerged her entire body, radiating a calm acceptance of death. In my heart, it felt as though a single string had been softly plucked. Suddenly, a shimmering golden door opened behind me. I saw my grandfather smiling and waving at me, a look of helpless resignation on his face. Why did you come so early? Without hesitation, I turned and walked toward that door. Tang Qijiao, there is no next life for us. We have no future. I wish you peace.